Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So I've had Jerry Norris from the Fledge in Lansing on the show a number of times, but today we get to discuss a new endeavor which will greatly expand the educational opportunities of those engaged at the Fledge and those soon to be engaged at the Fledge with the purchase of Urbandale Farms. Jerry's back to discuss this new bold step. Welcome back to the show, Jerry.
Nice to be back, Chris.
Absolutely. Love your story. Love the Fledge story. For those who don't know much about the Fledge, you can archive some prior episodes. I think Jerry's been on 4 or 5 times if you want to get a deeper dive into the Fledge. But why don't we start off with just a quick crash course. What is the Fledge? How did it get founded? And what's the mission? What are you trying to do?
Well, I think we started out, just being an incubator for businesses, mostly in the high-tech space or young people. And we quickly realized that with the economics of Lansing, we've got a lot of people who live below the ALICE threshold, meaning they work check to check, they can't afford all of their basic needs. And so we really started focusing on basic needs, and then that kind of brought us into, a distorted view of capitalism and consumerism and what wealth really means. That took us into democracy and, what democracy really means. And we really started looking at a holistic view of the community's health. We use social determinants of health a lot to figure things out. And, food is such a vital piece of our basic needs, and we have so much food insecurity. And then you look at, who controls the food supply, and it's usually, private equity, and that's not very representative of our community. So we're going to buy back houses, we're going to buy farms, we're going to get these in the hands of the people and let us control our own future.
That's fantastic. So now the Fledge is a physical space.
Yes.
So remind people where it is and kind of what it looks like if they were to walk through the front door. What would they experience?
The Fledge is at 1300 Eureka on the south side of Lansing, near Sparrow Hospital or U of M Sparrow. And I think if you walk in, it's kind of different for everybody, but you're going to be walking into an old 12,000 square foot repurposed church. And I think the common thing that everybody feels is that creative vibe, that innovation, and a welcoming, a safeness.
Got it. Okay. And you talked about ALICE threshold already a little bit and Maslow's hierarchy of needs and just kind of trying to make sure that our community is okay. It's been an interesting transformation that you've already kind of explained. And I'm proud to have at least kind of walked a little bit, and watched you evolve. And I think it's
You've been here since the beginning.
Right on. So, and it's an event space too, right? You've got an events calendar and you use the space to host events, right?
Yeah, thefledge.com/events. We have all kinds of things. I mean, from sword fighting, pro wrestling, pitch competitions. We had a drag show the other night. We've got some music, definitely music all of the time. So a lot to do. We've got a large maker space that we've built out. Our studio it looks amazing right now. We've got 2 organizations running the studios, and it's just getting better every day.
That's fantastic. Well, we've been talking about money a little bit, and I'd like to thank my team at Wagoner Financial. Are you ready to make smart financial decisions? Wagoner Financial offers proven processes for financial transformation, empowering individuals at all stages, whether you're just starting out, nearing retirement, or anywhere in between. Stop feeling unsure about your financial path. Wagoner Financial can help you undergo this financial transformation. Schedule a consultation today to discuss your individual needs and discover how Wagoner Financial can guide you by visiting wagoner-financial.com or give them a call at 517-853-3367. You will not be disappointed. So, Urbandale Farms, this is your first endeavor kind of off campus, right? I mean, everything that the Fledge owns is pretty much the church and the land that the church sits on?
No, we had a urban garden on the south side that we acquired from a group a couple years ago.
I didn't know that. Okay.
That's run by social work students out of MSU, and we're kind of looking at the, what's the correlation between having this garden here on the, unhoused population that's there? What's the correlation between even gunshot wounds and green space? There's a lot of evidence that green space is good for so many reasons.
No kidding.
And then we did last year buy our first house, and we put that on the blockchain, and we have cooperative ownership through NFTs, rent-to-own model, and all kinds of neat things. That's a whole episode in itself.
All right, well, we'll put a pin in that. That's fantastic. I didn't know that, and I'm proud to hear that. So you already have dabbled in a little of off-campus gardening,
Yes.
Community gardens, people using plots individually to grow food for themselves. Is that how that works? Or?
Mostly we have people combine their effort and just kind of make a pick an ingredient or pick what you need type of garden, so people can just come in and use it. And this will be our first endeavor where we're really focusing on an entrepreneur who is trying to be a farmer or trying to have a food business. And we're going to focus mostly on Black, Indigenous, people of color, because most of the food supply chain is, again, owned by private equity, controlled by white guys.
Right. Got it. So Urbandale Farms.
Yes.
Already existed. Obviously, it's got a name. Where is it, and how did the process of you purchasing that land from them work?
So Urbandale's been around for about 15 years, I think, maybe longer. It hasn't been operating for the last few years. And the Lansing Urban Farm Project wanted to get it into the hands of somebody who would carry on their mission. And so they had an application process. We filled that out. Maybe 10 other organizations filled it out, so it was competitive, and not so much the price side. They didn't really care about the money that much. They did care about the mission being fulfilled, and we're very mission driven. I mean, this is going to happen.
Right. And where is it?
Oh, sorry. Yes,
that's okay.
It's on the. It's south of Kalamazoo on a road called Hayford.
Okay.
So it's on the east, kind of southeast side, not the southeast side, the east side of Lansing. So it's on Hayford, south of Kalamazoo. You drive down to a dead end and you'll see it.
Right on.
And the address is 705 South Hayford.
And how big of a space is this?
It's got a house on it. So we've got another cooperative ownership house that we're working on. We've got a big hoop house, and then we have about an acre to farm, and we're going to add another acre with a couple of purchases through the land bank.
Got it. Okay. I think I can picture where that is. I know that the Greater Lansing Food Bank has an offshoot called the Garden Project, and they have their research or their resource center.
Yes.
Kind of on that same.
Yeah, that's about 2.5 blocks away.
Got it. Okay. So it's in that same neighborhood, essentially.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. So is it confirmed? I mean, is Urbandale Farms now?
We are in day 10. So as you can imagine,
so this is live. All right.
It is live. We transferred the title last week, and like I said, we're in day 10, and we've got the hoop house up and running. We've planted. We're gonna some cold, tolerant, and we're gonna make a bunch of sauerkraut, because that's really all we could plant was cabbage.
Right. We're recording this as of September of 2024, so we're going in. No. That's up to me to kind of timestamp this as we're talking about dates and time elapsed. But yeah, you don't plant a lot unless obviously the hoop house.
Yes.
You can do certain things with that, but that's not my department. But I get the concept of seasonal plantings, and you got to grow what's able to be grown. So you can start, even though we're kind of coming at the end of the traditional growing season.
Yes.
There is still energy that can be deployed, but I would imagine next March, April, you've got a little bit of a runway to get started and really rock that out.
Yeah, we're trying to cut down as much labor as we'll have in the spring by doing a lot of it now. And we've planted our first plant, and I don't expect that we will never not have a live plant. We're going to grow 365 days a year. We're going to figure that out.
Now, the people that are going to be tending this space, are they going to come in and basically grow a bunch of things, and then that food will be offered to people who need it? Or are the people who need it going to be the people that are engaged in the growing?
I think it's going to be more of the people who want to be entrepreneurs, who want to start a business in the food space, are going to control parts of the property and the land, and that will be protected in theirs to use for their business. But there will be a lot of, 72% of, or more than, not that, screwing up the number.
Don't worry about it.
Cut this part out. A large percentage of food gets wasted in the U.S. So we grow a lot of tomatoes, and they get spoiled because we grew too much and stuff like that. We're going to prevent food waste by diverting it to our free stands. If that happens, we will grow for the community, but we do have the space at the Fledge and the space on the south side to grow for the community as well. So this is going to be, very serious food production for these entrepreneurs. So we're like a maker space for them, if you will.
Okay, so people will have their space. They will grow what they believe they can sell, and they'll show up either at a store or at a farmer's market or whatever, and they're growing to go make money by selling it out. But it's locally sourced, and it's honestly grown and feeding the mission.
We will have a farmer's market every Saturday at the farm. We will be trying to work with local restaurants to put together like an exchange or a centralized place where we can grow a bunch of food across all the farms, not just ours, but Magnolia or Tenderheart or whomever, and use that to kind of guarantee customers for the year, because there are a lot of urban farms in Lansing, but most of them are struggling. They're not quite making the living that they should be making for such an important work. So we're going to try to help with that, and especially where they can teach us how to farm, we can teach them how to business, and we'll go from there.
Makes a lot of sense. We're talking about entrepreneurship, and I got to tell you, this episode is brought to you by the Michigan Rise Pre-Seed Fund, providing early-stage funding to Michigan-based startups. Since 2020, Michigan Rise has helped high-tech, high-growth startup companies achieve commercial and technical milestones through capital formation strategies, talent development, and customer acquisition tactics. With financing options at every stage of the entrepreneurial journey, Michigan Rise significantly increases the impact of new ideas and research. Visit www.michiganrise.com to discover how Michigan Rise can help fuel your startup's growth. Michigan Rise is supported by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the Michigan State University Research Foundation. So I read in your press release that you mentioned uplifting BIPOC farmers, BIPOC, and I'm not familiar with that term. Can you share with us what that means?
Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Got it. Okay. Maybe I should know that, but and you mentioned that before. Okay, got it. And you mentioned also that that Food Inc. Was a documentary that came out years ago. I didn't realize there was a Food Inc. 2.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your viewing of that, or maybe you and your team's viewing of that, kind of recharged you up and made this something that you felt like you really needed to do. Share with us maybe just a crash course on what Food Inc. and Food Inc. 2 taught you, and why that encouraged and made you do this.
I think at the end of the day, with documentaries like that, it's an illustration, or they're an illustration of how far away the food that we eat is grown from us. Like, either that could be distance, or it could be how they do it, how they store it, how they process it. And more as we get private equity and we start privatizing our basic needs, they continue to prey upon the consumer. And all of us are consumers of this. And we've got, increases in cancer and diabetes and addiction and all of these kind of bad health things. And if you look at our food, it correlates when, some of the tobacco companies started buying the food companies and changing the additives and changing the way that they process the food. And I've said my entire life that these food companies are setting us up for addiction by getting the kids addicted to the sugars early, all the way through everything that they use. Not everything they use, but I'm very passionate about this. And we've got 6 basic needs: childcare, healthcare, food, technology, transportation, and housing. And all 6 of them are controlled by private equity. We're in trouble if we don't do something about this. And I think the more that we grow, I know I'm talking about an acre, and it might not make a huge impact on the world, but if we can create a model that can be repeated or scaled or used someplace else, or bring a model here that's working somewhere like Detroit or what have you, then at least we can start to build a future and build systems that are alternatives to what's happening now. Because I don't don't think any of us would stand on the east side of Lansing and say this is, just ripe with food everywhere.
Right.
Because most of it's liquor stores, gas stations, and kind of fast food things that we have as choices for our kids in this neighborhood. And when they're eating chips and soda for lunch, they're not getting full, they're not getting nutrition, they're not getting, it's going to be a negative health outcome in the future. And I don't know how we get beyond our, just fighting for our basic needs if we don't start taking control of it, because it ain't going to get cheaper by big corporate mergers.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So where are the gaps now? What do you need to make Urbandale the success you want it to be? What can our listeners maybe contribute or understand as to where things stand?
I think that we've got a donation page that's up over the last couple of days. I just did a post on that. That'll be a running campaign. We have a couple of repairs to do, like on a shed. The hoop house has a small hole in it that I want to fix. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we have enough runway to be sustainable, where we can get some of these mostly black farmers up and running and giving them a fair shot at it, because it's super hard to start a farm. It's super hard to, it takes 2 generations to start a livestock farm and really get profitable. And when you're starting from scratch, that's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of help, and a lot of lifting, because the equity just has not been there forever. And so to really restore or create equity in our community, we need to do programs that get people involved, get them ownership, get their hands dirty. So we need everything. We need all your time, tools, talents, and treasures that you can bring. And everybody is welcome. We're Fledgy, so walk on that farm and give us an idea. We're going to say yes to it, and we're going to give it a shot. And I think that, come help us create this safe space. And if you're a farmer in Lansing, come see how you can help or how we can help you. I bet you we can bring some tech to the table that maybe people haven't thought of, but they're going to tell us, how to space the plants and how to tend to them and all that.
Good for you. Well, I know you're pretty robust on social and your website and everything. Remind everyone how they can stay involved in this.
All right. So thefledge.com is kind of the central point. You can find everything from there. But on Facebook, if you just search the Facebook or for The Fledge on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, LinkedIn, TikTok, everything.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. Always happy to tell your stories. You got so many to give, and I really appreciate you being here. We've been talking to the founder of The Fledge and discussing the purchase of Urbandale Farms. Thanks very much, Jerry Norris, for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep. So I'd love to give a final shout out to my loyal sponsors. We've got Forsberg Real Estate, Wagoner Financial, Triterra Environmental, Good Marketing, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. They're all fantastic people. And if you found this show as a one-off, I want to remind you to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts, including YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. This is Chris Buck. Thanks for listening to Michigan Reimagined.